Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. My name's Alex Sinclair. I'm the CTO of the GSMA. Apologies that took a while, but as you can see, we've got a fairly large panel. That's because it takes a village to do what we're going to be talking about. But I'll just very briefly introduce the panel. Right next to me, we have Chema Alonso, who's the Chief Digital Officer at Telefónica. Then we have Singh, who is General Manager Robotics, Unmanned Vehicle and Autonomous Systems at Qualcomm. Then some of you may remember Neff from ZTE, the CTO office. He was here last year. Then we have an old colleague of mine, Javier Albares from Here Technologies. He's the Head of Industry Solutions. And last but not least, I can just about see him, Adolfo Calvino, who's with HCLTech. He's the country head for Spain and Portugal. Now, we're going to try and talk to you a little bit today about 5G and smart cities, or making cities smarter, or even sentient at some point. But we will start by talking about what is already present, possible, here and now. And for no other reason than Chema is sitting directly next to me, I'll start with Chema and ask you to talk a little bit about some of the interesting things that Telefónica is already doing to change city life.
Well, hello hackers, how are you? You know why should be sitting in the back of the classroom? Because if you sit in the first row, you receive the first question, so that's not the best idea. So, well, in Telefónica, we are doing a lot of things related to this, and for us is very relevant because we started years ago to see ourselves not as an infrastructure company. We see us more like a software company, and we need to transform everything that we are doing. And the future that we see for the infrastructure that we have in the cities is like creating a platform. We need to make something similar than we have today in cloud computing, but in the smart cities. It's true that we need to put a lot of sensors, that we need to put a lot of connectivity, that we need to deploy a lot of infrastructure, but the most important and most relevant is that we need to create the interfaces to allow developers, creators, the digital creators of the who knows what are going to be the next digital services that people are going to experience in the cities are ready. And for us, this is very transformative because we need to transform the capabilities, the talent that we have internally, the business plan that we create from let's deploy this and share that every month to let's create something that adds value, that is going to be created after. So we created a unit in Telefónica, which is Telefónica Tech, which is based in IoT plus artificial intelligence for smart cities. And the only thing that we are doing is to create that platform and allow digital creators to do that. And it's not only for the smart cities itself, which is something that we usually do with business to government, but also in the residential business, in which we see that we need to transform the network itself. As you know, in Telefónica, and most of the telcos are aligned, we believe that telco capabilities should be available in real time, on demand, and with one single line of code. And because of that, we have an important project in all the telcos that we call Network as a Service, trying to allow digital creators to create new stuff. We don't know what is going to be the digital services that are going to be relevant for the citizens in the future, but we believe that they are going to require that capabilities. And that's what we are doing, Alex.
Thank you very much indeed. I particularly like the fact you mentioned the people angle as well, because it's also people that are going to have to change, not just systems and APIs.
Correct.
If I move on to you then, perhaps, Dev. Obviously, Qualcomm plays quite a unique role in this whole chain as well, the ecosystem, as it were, and you're doing an awful lot. You have your Smart City Accelerator programs. You work a lot with other manufacturers, suppliers, device manufacturers. Tell us some of the interesting things that Qualcomm is doing in this space.
Yeah. First of all, it's great to be here. So Qualcomm is a technology company, technology provider, right? We work with the telcos, we work with the infrastructure, we work with everybody. So when you think about smart cities, there are multiple pieces to it, right? There's sensors, there's connectivity, there's decision making, there's intelligence, and there's platforms. So at Qualcomm, I mean, we have a very huge portfolio for IoT. Of course, mobile is one of the IoT devices. Actually, this is a true IoT device, right? So not only do the processing, but also the connectivity, like 5G innovation, is also happening. But my role is, as a part of GM for the IoT, robotics, smart city division, we work with all the sensors manufacturers. For example, just take about all the smart cameras, all the edge intelligence devices. Then we work with the network and operators for 5G deployment. We work with enterprises for private network deployment and making cities and others smart. So it's a whole plethora of things. So we are fortunate to be able to see the whole digital transformation happening. And our vision is to connect the unconnected and the future of everybody and everything being connected intelligently. That's what we are trying to do, both from the connectivity piece of things, but also the intelligence and processing side of things as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So Hans, it's no secret, I think, that the 5G leaders at the moment aren't necessarily in Europe. I think the last time I checked, the number of 5G to B, as we call it, 5G to business cases in China alone was more than 1,500. Maybe you can tell us some of the cool and interesting things that ZTE is doing in cities around the world to transform lives.
I would say transformation starts in the city itself. A smart city, and this is, I think, the prospect to go for, is not the main customer of its own products. And I pick up there one point: smart city is a kind of platform. Platform allowing others to host in, platform to allow others to provide services, and a platform for the benefit of the individuality, for the benefit of the citizens. Connectivity is one of the main points, and connectivity of everything is the main driver of such, let's name it, smart innovation. To have a safe, to have a green, to have an individual, to have an, let's say, intelligent, to have an efficient smart city on the set. And 5G here is one of the, let's say, base layers we use to evolve smart cities. Now, smart cities have not been created by 2022, I'm sorry. This is a pretty longer story. And if we talk about Harare, who built their centers in an ecological way with natural cooling, or if you take a look at China, who uses natural sponge material to absorb rainwater and high water sets, this is also kind of a smart city. But let's focus on the Singapore aspect, for example, or on Shenzhen, or on other cases, where you have a platform allowing industries, allowing application providers, allowing municipalities to offer to citizens services which were not as easy or even not existing before. So there are smart transportation cases benefiting basically the complete transportation management, the efficiency of transformation. There are smart grid cases. We can then go later a little deeper and investigate there, for example, emergency platform cases, where you have there an emergency platform for a whole city, combining fire brigade, combining emergency rescue services, combining police, combining hospital services together as one platform, as one messaging construction, also with alerting services for the people to know there is something ongoing. So those aspects and those, let's say, innovations we can already see in use cases in China. So it's not just smart industry and smart campus which is focusing on and rising up there. So the main approach is really going to cities, and I would say even going further, because smart city shouldn't be the border. So smart city is nice, but we talk about then smart village, smart urban. It's basically a smart experience connecting everything everywhere. One case I want to mention last is, for example, an agricultural case, which is very, very not city. It's on the very rural side, which is going to re-fertilize land which is rotten or which is damaged, which is used with sensoring, which is used with remote control of trucks, which is used for remote fertilizing, to have there really the case to re-urbanize the land and reuse the land for agriculture. And this starts really from inner city cases down to the urban area.
Thanks very much, Hans. So, Javier, Hans mentioned transport, and transportation is kind of the lifeblood of any city, not just for ordinary human beings, but for all of the materials, logistics. I know that here Technologies has been heavily involved in this space with 5G AA and others. And interestingly enough, before we started today, you were also talking about platforms, so there's a common theme here. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've been doing with here Technologies.
Yes, well, maybe as sort of introduction, here Technologies is a company that is owned by the automotive OEMs. Audi, BMW, Daimler are the companies that control the company. And it's focused mostly on the connected and autonomous mobility use cases. And as such, when you get into this combination of telecoms and automotive, I think you get into a very interesting space that, in my opinion, is going to create a completely new sector in the future. That will have use cases that will be important for cities, like you have mentioned, transport, logistics, but also that everything that is going to be in the sphere of automation, from robotics to drones to you name it. So this world of future automation, I think, is where I think we are going to be probably seeing most of the value of 5G and beyond in the future. In today's panel, I think most of the companies represent the technology pool that this industry has done in the last, I would say, 10 years, which has been, by the way, amazing. But I think I probably represent more the market pool that I think, in my opinion, is required and that we are missing today. I think there is a bit of, I feel like there is an imbalance between a huge technology push and a very mild market pull from sectors and industries that still don't understand what is in it for them in this huge transformation. They understand it, I think, at the incremental level, but not at the big transformational, probably because it requires a level of, I would say, Schumpeterian creative destruction that still needs to be digested. I think that to me the key point is that every technology generation in telecoms takes around 10 years to be developed, but the services that go with it takes 20 years. So there is a decoupling between the cycles of the service that is going to use the technology and the technology itself. That is, I think, incrementally adding on top of every generation. So I think the telecom industry has done a lot of very good work in interoperability and standard that I think needs to be translated to other sectors. In this case, the sector that I see has a lot of fragmentation, a lot of small projects here and there that I think are not going to scale well. And to your question on platforms, I think this is where we need to take, as an ecosystem, some decisions, some alignment in terms of, okay, where are we going to build together in order to guarantee scalability at a profitable level so that these services can be implemented. Otherwise, I think we are going to, for a very long time, be in this stage of trials, of R&D projects that are nice from a communication point of view, but will not make it to the real line of economic impact. So.
Thank you very much. And Adolfo, you've been waiting very patiently at the end. That's the problem with a large panel. But I'm glad to say you're actually a local boy. You're from Barcelona. So maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the things that are even going on here. And also what you mentioned to me last week in La Défense in Paris, some of the things that HCL Technologies is doing right now.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Well, HCL Technologies is a $12 billion company. We do have three big businesses. We do have a platform business. We do have an engineering and R&D business that works mainly on innovation. And we do have the cloud and system integration business, these three areas. And this integrated approach helps us to really connect with one of the topics that we have heard here on this panel, that is about use cases that really are scalable and are adding value to our clients. And for example, I can provide you some examples of things that we are doing in Europe. We are working with a telco company in Europe that where we have agreed, and we are working in a partnership to develop new products leveraging 5G, AI, and cloud. Then these new products and services that we are building jointly will be sold by this telco to their customers, both in the business-to-business channel, but as well into the business-to-consumer channel. Because really, our integrated capabilities, what allow us is to define the product, create the product, test it, and really scale it after. We are doing similar things related to energy consumption. For example, for telco towers. We are doing things around security in cities. We are using artificial intelligence, cloud, edge computing. We are capturing data in the streets to really try to help to reduce the delinquency ratios in a big, huge Latin American city. We are as well, for example, we are working in what it's now as well very, very, very a very evident use case for 5G in everything related to crowded places. We are the digital transformation partner of the MetLife Stadium in New York, where the Giants and the Jets are playing their leagues, and we are helping to really monetize the stadium. What else they can do more than selling tickets and selling Frankfurts, etc., etc. How they can be more digital and how they can do cross-selling, better fan experience in the stadium, outside of the stadium. Really, we do have many, many experiences. Also, really, the areas where really our clients are pushing us for being more innovative or where we are perceiving more appetite to spend money and really to add value to their customers is in the telco business, that we do have here a lot of examples, and as well into the utilities business. Everything related to energy, to water, IoT, everything related to how to optimize, to avoid losses, to optimize consumption of energy, really something that we are investing a lot jointly with our clients. And the last thing is about everything related to health services, everything related to, and also now really, we are all every day older. We are lucky. Before the meeting, we were discussing about the immortality of these things and the investments that some big people are doing on that. Health services are going to be in the future even more critical. We do have a big business unit dedicated to this in our engineering practice, and really, I do think this is as well one of the key parts, jointly with the smart transportation and smart mobility, for a city to really become a smart city where their people lives better and with a sustainable environment.
Yeah, and it's really important that you mentioned that as well, because Chema and I were talking before the session about the importance of cities. The purpose of cities really is to be there for the citizens and to make sure that you can basically work, rest, and play in a very positive manner. I'm glad you mentioned health. I was in Thailand a couple of weeks ago, and there's a hospital called Sirea, I think it is, in Bangkok, where they've got their version of a 5G hospital and a 5G ambulance service, which was quite interesting. And Hans, you mentioned you might want to come back to health as well. Did you want to add anything?
Sure, we can do. So I would start with general health approach. In China, you had the chance to experience the impact of the pandemic in a very specific way. And this impact itself on the health aspect is, number one, I mentioned before, the platform for the emergency, the platform for the cases of rescue service and others. The second thing is basically having their remote consultancy, having their remote health services on distributed areas, having their basically platforms allowing intercommunication between a patient and between a doctor on exchange services of files, exchange services on data. You have the possibilities of remote blood pressure, remote analysis, remote ultrasound measurements. So there were implementations on those cases, which is, so if you think about remote surgery, please forget that. That's a nice story, but no. But there are things which can be done, and there are things which are able to be done. There was a huge improvement as people have to stay in hospital, how to realize communication with their family if they cannot enter the hospital due to Corona. There were aspects to go for and say, okay, how to interact between persons which are affected and not infected on Corona. So basically, video conferencing and a bit matter. And basically also guidance systems in hospitals. So there were hospitals built up in a very, very short time with such electronic guidance systems, with such platforms to simplify and automate basically the treatment, the communication, the exchange of files, and the, let's say, healthcare in general.
So, of course, if you're talking about healthcare, that raises another point. And Adolfo did mention security earlier, but from a different angle. Mm-hmm. And obviously, Chema, security, a lot of people talk security about 5G, but they're talking a lot of different things sometimes. Some people are concerned that 5G isn't secure. Some people are concerned that it will be in literally everything within a couple of years. What can we do to kind of reassure them?
Well, I can imagine why you are asking that question to me. Well, the truth is that when we were talking about the cities and the smart cities and the use cases, I was thinking in the main use case of one city, and to me, and I think that for all of you, the city is my city. I live in Madrid. I love Madrid. But my city is responsible for most of my happiness and unhappiness. Most of people feel happy when they go to work and there is no traffic jam, when you have an emergency and you have everything up and ready, when you don't have noise at night and you can sleep well, when you can do a good plan, when you can have a Tinder date. How many of you have been using Tinder today in Barcelona? For discovering the city is one of the best way of discovering the city and meet nice people. So in the end, smart cities are very relevant in our lives, and every one of us want a different city, and we need to create that smart city that adapts to the people. And one relevant thing is, as you mentioned, security and safety. We need to feel safe. If you are sleeping at home and you don't feel safe, you cannot sleep. If you are taking your kids to the school and you are rushing or having troubles to get to the school, or you are breathing bad quality air, you don't feel happy, and that's a main responsibility. And we are creating, all of us, all the companies that we are here are creating the future of these smart cities. We have a partnership with Qualcomm to take advantage of the great platform that they have for augmented reality and creating experiences on the city. CTA, we create a lot of technologies based on their antenna and their APIs that they provide to us, to the telco. And in the end, the use cases of the happiness in the smart city should be secure, because, of course, every piece of technology has vulnerabilities. It's true that we create much more secure technology today. If you look for the number of bugs per 1,000 line of code, it's going dramatically down. So we managed to reduce the number of bugs per 1,000 line of codes. But the reality is that we increase the number of thousands line of code in every single corner of our lives. So one single bug in one smart city platform can generate a lot of unhappiness to the life of the people. And because of that, it's so extremely important to take security in the core of every decision that we have in smart cities, transport, energy, whatever, you name it. And this is a big challenge. It's the same challenge that we have when you jump into a plane, because there is software with bugs. Sorry, you are flying in a plane with bugs. But we need to fix it, learn, and try to improve the quality. We cannot be 100% secure that we are not going to face any trouble in the smart city security. But we cannot say no to the future, because we can have a lot of happiness for a better smart city. That's my point.
That's very good. There's no such thing as 100% security. You just want to get as close as possible. But at our show in Las Vegas about 6 weeks ago, we had the CTIO of Las Vegas City, who was very proud of his private dedicated 5G network. And many of the applications that he was running involved autonomous vehicles, drones, delivery drones. So I thought I'd come back to Dev. That's kind of one of your many expertise areas, and talk about the role of not just the humans, but the things in the city of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is what the Internet of Things is. We talked about happiness and all. It's all about how these things create that atmosphere for us. I mean, there's many use cases, many things that we are working with, Las Vegas PD and others. Drones as first responders. I mean, we've seen massive shortages of human power. The response for emergency services can be critical. So there is one of the things that 5G network is across cities being used for is drones for first responders. Today, we have at least 5 or 7 PD police departments in the US doing this as an implementation. Every single 911 call, a drone dispatches itself automatically, right? And it's giving the situational awareness on the ground, which says, okay, somebody called because their cat was up in the tree. You don't need to send the brigade and everything, right? They can disarm the situation in a way. There are other situations where, yes, you needed backup force, everything. So even before anybody is dispatched, you already have a visual on the situation. And that is the number one thing for de-escalation. Because sometimes people go in thinking there's something and with a lot of force. And we've seen a lot of these happen things, and you have a lot of bad reputation for the police departments because excessive force is being used. Because sometimes they don't know what they're getting into. But the first part of de-escalation is knowing what you are getting into. And that is what situational awareness of these things will make the lives better. And that's why these things are important when it comes to drones, autonomous cameras, and everything working together are the sensors, the connectivity, and the decision-making, in my opinion. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Adolfo, you mentioned a couple of points earlier on that a lot of people are looking into, and that is, it's not just quality of life, it's quality of air, it's quality of water, it's making sure you don't lose too much water through leaks, etc. These are some of the things that we can do with the sensors and the technologies that we're looking at as well. Can you expand a little bit more on what you were talking about that HCL Technologies is doing?
Yes. In fact, what we are building are specific platforms related to utilities, to energy. In fact, we are already working with some telcos for everything related to the energy, the optimization of the energy consumption of the towers, for example. Also, we are having some POCs around what the waste of water or the loss of water in the tubes, in the pipes, and really is an area where there is a clear business case, for not only from an environmental perspective, but as well for our clients in terms of money they save, They save or additional revenues. We are as well trying to extend that to try to capture that information and to integrate that information with the data of our clients to show those dashboards to the different councils that are, for example, clients of the water concessions, and really it's something that really where the councils are really very interested and understanding the value of those improvements.
Thank you very much. Javier, you mentioned a little bit earlier some of the challenges that we face, because we all want all of these things in all of our cities now. It's okay if you build a green city from the beginning, from the bottom up, you can make that thing new, you can do a lot of this stuff. But real cities like this beautiful city of Barcelona are old. They have infrastructure that's complicated. They have many different departments. What are some of the challenges that you face in trying to make this stuff happen? And what, if anything, could maybe even government do to help, do you think, Javier?
Well, I think the use cases that we look at, I think the biggest challenge is definitely the deployment of infrastructure on the ground at scale so that you can really do what you want to do. Unfortunately, many companies that are shareholders of my company have to do their tests in the US or in other places of the world because it's just not possible to do it in Europe. I mean, you can do it in a closed setting, but not in an open space like you could do, for example, if you were, I don't know, cruise in San Francisco, for example, or Waymo. So that is one. But I think to me the big question here is that if the early phase of 5G was about integrating computing into communications, I think the next one, the one that we are discussing, is about integrating sensing into computing and communication. And the way things are being built today are going to require, I think, a lot of, because of the reliability and the way that this fragmented space is being built, is getting a lot of entropy. And I don't think it's going to be economically sustainable. So I think we need to think as a system, as an ecosystem, where does it make more sense to really place the computing and the sensing capabilities of all these cameras, LiDARs, or whatever you want to mention, that are going to be placed both in this case, in devices that are going to be moving like cars or in fixed places. And how everybody is going to have access to that source of information that can be computed for multiple use cases, not just for the direct one that is operating, in this case, that camera. I think for example, as an example, I think decisions like the one that Tesla took of focusing just on computer vision for future autonomous cars, I think it signals that there is an scalability problem in the ecosystem at the sensor level that needs to be addressed by the ecosystem. Because, in my opinion, it's a suboptimal decision, but at the same time, I understand that if you take this on a purely economic business logic, it makes sense. So I think we have to find ways to probably, especially I think at the smart city level, because what we are seeing is that the externalities of any use case are going to be huge. So if I improve the traffic for my commute, I am also improving the life of Chema that is going to be happier. So I think that there are a lot of things that we can trade off here, and that requires, I think, a different cut in the way we are looking at problems right now. That would be, I think, the main message in this case, to public governments, because I think they're in a position in which they can intermediate how these things are going to scale. Right now, what we have is a lot of silos. Depending on the size of the silo owner, I mean, you can say, okay, this is going to look better or what, but I don't think that this is going to work at scale for everybody, especially, I think, in society like us in Europe, where we intend to have something that is going to be open and inclusive for a lot of people. Otherwise, I think we are going to create very monolithic spaces that probably are not going to be great, in my opinion.
If I may, Alex, and agree with them, and the truth about the smart cities is that we used to see the future, augmented reality, everything working perfectly, but the big problem is that we are in Barcelona or in Madrid, in London, we are all cities, but we have a lot of technologies from the 70s, 80s. We have a lot of, and this is an example with IBM, which is a real example. We have a lot of AS400, which is still in a lot of companies, but also it's not. I'm not saying that AS400 is a bad example, because it's a solid system that works, and we have a lot of those silos in the cities, in the smart cities. And break that silos is very difficult, because the city is working right now, today, every single day, and this is something that we need to address. And people that we used to see smart cities as an innovation place in which you can build that a bright future, we need to think a lot on that, on the replacement, the migration, the integration, the transformation of the legacy system. If you go to do a project to create a new platform in, I don't know, in transformation in Madrid or in Barcelona, probably they have more than 20 different platforms today that you cannot stop, and probably are private solutions that no one knows, only the manufacturer that sold that technology 20 years ago. So that's a big problem, and we are not going to be able to unlock the value of the technology that we have today for the smart cities if we don't address and tackle that problem.
Yeah, there is one additional thing that worries to me, that is about inclusion. Inclusion, because 5G will allow us to have a lot of additional digital services with a lot of much bigger potential than today, and there could be a part of population that could be outside of that. Mm-hmm. In Barcelona or in Madrid, perhaps some segments of the population, but if we go to another worlds, if we go to some specific, not let's say the big high developed areas like Europe, Americas, or China, we can go to places that really will have limited access, or we have limited possibility to leverage those new capabilities. And also for sustainability, no? Because I think 5G will be key for sustainability. We can have a very nice Barcelona, but if we do have a 20 million population cities that are like today, dirty, then we will be doing almost nothing.
Mm. So I'm afraid we're almost out of time. I do like the fact that, by the way, you came back to the social aspect towards the end and the sustainability. We wear these for a reason. And one thing we don't have time to discuss probably is just what kind of impact 5G is going to have on sustainability, not just because it's the most efficient generation ever, but the impact, as indeed one of you mentioned, of using some of these sensors in other areas can actually reduce their carbon footprints as well. We've only got 28 seconds, and Chema's already looking at his watch. I don't know if it's possible to take one question from the audience. Do we have any interested questions? I'm afraid it's hard to see. If we do, we'll try and get a microphone to you. If not, we've got to make sure this man gets on a plane. It seems not, in which case we are very close towards the end. I want to thank all of the panelists for making the time, sharing their insight, and being very patient, because with 5 panelists, you don't get a lot of talk time. But it's been fascinating. Thank you all very much for coming. I hope you've enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.